If we look at the Cincinnati Bengals, it looks like them and Trey Hendrickson, they will not be coming to an agreement anytime soon. So on today's episode, I'm here to let you all know why Trey Hendrickson to the Detroit Lions will be the perfect fit for them and what they're trying to do this season. Y'all know we're going to talk about it and break it all down right after this.
Welcome to your number one spot for all NFL news and content, NFL Central.
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back into another episode of NFL Central, your number one spot for everything NFL. I'm your host here, Bobby, and I'm holding it down on today's daily episode. So if you're tuned in, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell as well as we continue to drop this content surrounding the NFL. Now, Trey Hendrickson, you already know that a lot of teams right now, they're beginning their mandatory mini camps and been going through some off-season stuff in preparation for a training camp in the next month or so. And right now, it's definitely not looking like Trey Hendrickson will be playing a single snap for the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, if we remember correctly, we remember Trey Hendrickson pretty much coming out and placing himself right in front of the cameras and saying that some of those things that transpired when it came to negotiations, he's now taking it personal. He's already been very adamant that, hey, he's not playing this season for the Cincinnati Bengals if they don't make him an offer that makes a lot of sense for him and what he's trying to do before he ultimately calls it a career. Now, when we look at the Cincinnati Bengals and then we transition on to the Detroit Lions, I think that the Cincinnati Bengals are making a huge mistake not signing Trey Hendrickson simply because you have those three guys on the offensive side locked up, and you still have a bunch of questions on the defensive side of the ball. And Trey Hendrickson has been that constant, consistent force on the defensive side of the ball for the Cincinnati Bengals. And now you find yourself in a sticky situation that you might not be able to get out of. But that's why I call in the Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions this past season, man, had a lot of aspirations, and hey, they faltered. But it's a lot of things to prove for this Detroit Lions team. And I believe that if you want to go out there and make another splash type of move, you go get Trey Hendrickson. Now, this offseason thus far, the Detroit Lions, they went out in the draft and they drafted defensive lineman Tyleik Williams out of Ohio State in the first round, and then went out there and tried to acquire some more defensive line help by taking Ahmad Hassani out of Boise State, which was pretty impressive for a six-round pick and accumulated 22 sacks in his last two seasons with 115 QB pressures. That is crazy to me. But then they went out and signed or re-signed some of the guys that were a part of their team or brought onto their team, guys like Aquandu Muhammad, Pat O'Connor, Levi Owazurike, Miles Adams, and Marcus Davenport. Now, I will say that those guys could help bolster a defensive line for sure, because a lot of those guys are going to be coming in with some type of past experience and having some experience or some type of continuity with the Detroit Lions. But let's keep it a buck. Ain't none of those guys Trey Hendrickson. And if the Detroit Lions, if you're looking at their situation, they lost in a divisional round at home to the Washington Commanders 45-31, a gut punching loss that happened to a team that had aspirations of going to the Super Bowl. And this is why I'm on board with saying, hey, if you're the Detroit Lions, you absolutely have to explore the option of going to get a Trey Hendrickson simply because you need that pass rush to be humming around the NFL right now. And I know that they have Aiden Hutchinson, and we just mentioned a lot of the guys that they brought onto the team. But again, Aiden Hutchinson needs support, and ain't none of those guys that they brought in Trey Hendrickson. Trey Hendrickson, man, what better way to go out there and handle that business with a guy like Trey Hendrickson who is up there in age. I understand there could be some reservations there, who you do have to pay some money to. I understand that aspect of it as well, especially with some other guys on the team, just to throw some out there like a JMO and then like a Sam Laporta who might be looking for a payday coming up here soon. But you have this window of opportunity, and it's getting real thick in the NFC North with the Chicago Bears making a jump, with the Green Bay Packers still being good, with the Minnesota Vikings going out and having an exceptional offseason. And their only main question is, what do they do with JJ McCarthy, or how does JJ McCarthy look? So within that NFC North alone, that window is getting smaller and smaller. And then with the NFC, teams are getting better. You look at the Washington Commanders, who had some success this past offseason and was able to, add on to their team and be able to make some solid draft selections, and then bringing in guys like Deebo Samuel and Larry Tunsil onto their team to make it a tighter race. You look at the Dallas Cowboys and you say, hey, their offensive line is going to be stout again, and then they go get George Pickens, and now they bring in a former head coach of Matt Eberflus, who should be really good for their defense to help bolster that defense over there. You look to the NFC South in the Atlanta Falcons with Michael Penix Jr., who is all right to end the season and has expectations to elevate himself again, and then went out and bolstered up their defense by going to get two good pass rushers in this draft, though they are young, but really good pass rushers in this year's draft to help bolster that defensive line, because that was one of the things that was lacking. So teams are catching up to the Detroit Lions, and you need to strike gold if you feel you are the Detroit Lions and want to capture the championship that you were never able to capture. So you cannot sit around and pussyfoot with this. You cannot sit around and play with this. And then you think about some of the losses that the Detroit Lions have had. You lost both of your coordinators. You lost Ben Johnson, who was the architect to that offense that we seen make people just look amateur. You look at an Aaron Glenn who had his issues with player injuries on the defensive side, but still was able to get the best out of those guys that was available to him. So you look at those situations. You look at Frank Ragnow just retiring out of nowhere, and then the expectation is to just have a rookie guard switch to center, and it's getting a little shaky right now. So what better now for the Detroit Lions to sit there and say, hey, let's go out there, let's put a chip in the middle of the table, and let's see if we can go ahead and strike gold with a guy like Trey Hendrickson, simply because if that offensive line is not humming, right along, you want to buy yourself some time, and you buy yourself some time by letting Aiden Hutchinson come off one end and allowing Trey Hendrickson to come off the other end, and then see if your young rookie defensive lineman Talik Williams can cause pressure up the middle, and then you have a nice rotation of some of these other guys that they picked up in Marcus Davenport or Alquan Muhammad. Because if we call it how we see it, after Aiden Hutchinson, the leading sack guy that was on the Detroit Lions was Zadarius Smith. He's not on the team anymore, guys. So if you're the Detroit Lions, you absolutely have to look at Trey Hendrickson, who in the last 2 seasons had 35 sacks, 35 tackles for loss, 61 QB hits in the last 2 seasons. So you bring that guy in, you allow him to be himself, you pair him up with Aiden Hutchinson. That's going to be a problem for teams in the NFC North and the NFC. And hopefully you can get yourself to the promised land in the big game and see if you can capture one for a team that hasn't won it. You give yourself that opportunity by going to get a guy like Trey Hendrickson. And what better time than now? You worry about all the damn money later. You go and you have some conversations with, those guys. Maybe you can go ahead and lower some of that, some of that hit by translating that into a signing bonus and something like that. And maybe you have to make some tougher decisions about other guys later down the road. But you have this season right now because teams are catching up. Teams are catching up, and we already know teams can go from worst to first in a heartbeat or first to worst in a heartbeat in the NFL. It definitely these organizations can turn things around a lot faster in the NFL, more so than a basketball season or some type of other sport like that. It can happen and be there for you really quick in the NFL, or it can be gone really quick in the NFL. So Trey Hendrickson, if you're the Detroit Lions, you absolutely have to go explore getting Trey Hendrickson onto your football team to try to push for that Super Bowl and try to push for some type of success. Because again, I like Dan Campbell. I've seen what Dan Campbell is made of. I believe he is the damn culture builder over there in Detroit. But at the same time, it's only so many times you can say, hey, nobody believed in us. A lot of people believed in the Detroit Lions last season. We thought that offense was going to be virtually unstoppable. But when you got a quarterback throwing, you know what I'm saying, all them interceptions and stuff, you need somebody to be able to get you the ball back. And the way you get the ball back is defensive line pressure, good defensive back play, but it all starts in the trenches. We all seen that. We seen the new Philadelphia Eagles be able to just beat the brakes off the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl to where it was pretty much over very, very quick. Like it was over very, very quick by halftime. We could just call it that. But if you're the Detroit Lions, you absolutely have to explore this option and see if he is available, what he's available for, and come to some type of terms of saying, to hell with it. Let's go and get him. And if you're the Cincinnati Bengals, you don't want to pay him, let him the hell go. That's how I personally feel about it. Who cares about your feelings about what you think that how much he's worth? He's not expected to play for you this season. Don't be acting like you deserve a first round pick for Trey Hendrickson if I got to trade for him and pay him. That's just how I'm looking at it. But hey, man, we'll see though. We'll see what happens, man. We still going through the offseason. Training camp is not here yet. I expect something to happen with Trey Hendrickson and Detroit Lions. Will your name be on top of the list when it goes across that ticker? Detroit Lions, will you be the team to say, hey, we traded for Trey Hendrickson? I think they should, but we'll see what happens. But that's it for me. That's it for me today, y'all. I appreciate y'all for tuning in to another episode of NFL Central. Before y'all get up out of here, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop the comment box below to let me know how you feeling about today's topic. Thank y'all so much. Make sure you always love football, man. And I'm going to catch y'all on the next one for sure.